Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have as my guest Venus Castleberg. Venus is an energetic clearing specialist, intuitive guide, an ordained minister with over 25 years of experience working with the unseen. After a life-changing awakening at age 30, where she began seeing spirits and energy, Venus committed to help clear those energies that do not belong. Venus is also the founder of the Vibrational Flow Method and brings a unique blend of spiritual insight and grounded practicality, having once owned and operated a construction company and insurance agency. Today, she brings that blend into the world of real estate, partnering with agents to clear the energy that can prevent homes from selling. Through her 7-step vibrational flow system, she helps properties release old stories and attract the buyers they're truly meant for. Venus creates a grounded, compassionate space for exploring what's really going on behind the veil. Venus, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. It's an absolute pleasure having you on the program today.
Wonderful to be here with you, Dave. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And also we have to give a shout out first to your cat Treasure, who I know is sitting in your lap. So for those of you who are on YouTube, there you go. She's a beautiful cat. So for those of you on YouTube, and if you see a very mysterious looking feline on Venus's lap, that's Treasure, and she's more than welcome. So cats, dogs, horses, they're all welcome. So
animals.
yes, we do too. So, and we also have to give a second shout out to Alethea Felton. Alethea has been very supportive of the Teaching Journeys podcast for a long time. I've been on her podcast. She's just a great person, and she cooked us up on LinkedIn, and we had an introductory conversation, and I ended up being invited to be on your wonderful podcast, Awakening Adventures, and here we are doing a podcast exchange.
Hey.
Yeah. What changed for you at age 30? Tell us, the audience, about this life-altering event that occurred.
Yeah, well, I became a clairvoyant medium, which means I could suddenly see the spirit realm. And I had no inklings of that before. I think when I was maybe 5 or 6, I had an imaginary friend, but that was the only time that maybe I might have had an inkling of a gift, and it never showed up again after that until I turned 30.
Can you think back? Was there any events or anything that you could think of that might have triggered your suddenly, psychic intuition?
Yeah, I think there was a combination of things. I'll give a little bit more history. When I was 18, my dad died, and it was very traumatic for me because at the time I was raised with religion and Catholic, and there was a heaven and a hell, and nice people, saved people went to heaven, and not so nice people went to hell. Well, my dad was great to me, but he didn't really like people that much. So I was worried at the time that maybe he had gone to hell. And so I really struggled with that for a very long time, like 10 years. And then when I turned 30, I was doing a lot of partying, drugs, alcohol in my 20s. And when I turned 30, I decided to stop. And so I got clean and sober. And about 6 months later, I went through my Reiki trainings, Reiki 1, 2, and Reiki Master. And coming home from my Reiki Master, I was practicing Reiki on my then fiance, and I said, well, that seems weird, but I think a spirit just walked in the room. And he said, oh, really great. Tell me all about him. And I was like, okay. He was tall, thin, sunken eyes, plaid shirt, He's like, oh, I know exactly who that is. That's Slim, the ranch hand from when I was a kid. And I'm like, great, he's still alive? And he's like, no, he's dead. And I said some explicitive words I will leave off of the podcast today, but that I'm a medium. It was my realization, was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was now a medium. So, yeah.
And it sounds like, you getting sober and then embracing Reiki, and there was a conduit for all of that. Once you got clear and you started exploring Reiki and other non-traditional practices, it opened you up. And I have to share something. It's kind of interesting that you mentioned Reiki. I just finished up my Usui Holy Fire Reiki 1 level practitioner training, and I'm starting Reiki 2
Well,
on the 21st of July. And Venus, it's interesting because I've been doing self Reiki every day for about 7 weeks.
right.
And starting from the attunement, I saw a purple aura, and I saw another spirit of a deceased professor I once knew. And the purple aura was, the history with my daughter. The purple aura was my daughter, and the other professor was with her. And then from there, since I've been doing self Reiki, I've discovered my spirit wolf. I've discovered a lot of things have come to me very intuitively. It's opened up a whole new different realm for me. I've always believed in a multidimensional universe, and I've experienced it through connecting the dots, just with, connecting events and saying, aha. But now it's taking on, I think, another layered approach. So it was just interesting to me that you mentioned Reiki, because that's a practice now that I'm beginning to embrace.
That's awesome. I look forward to seeing when it opens up for you.
Yeah, me too. And, and I've always been science-based. I know we've talked about this, but there's a room for science, and there's a room for mystery, and there's a room for non-scientific practices or non-traditional practices, which on the other hand, science has proved to be valid in improving physical and mental well-being. So, but yeah, I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted. But yeah, just another moment of serendipity I thought was really cool. So, how did you get involved with clearing houses?
Well, after becoming a clairvoyant medium, I actually resisted it for 3 years. I was like, I don't want that gift, take it back. I looked around for a return receipt. There wasn't one. So after about 3 years of fighting it, I started to feel depressed. And I'm not a depressive person, but I kind of knew, I was like, I think that this has to do with the fact that I'm really resisting this gift that I have been given. And so I'm like, all right, I need to find a way to surrender. And at the time, I had a friend of the family that lived in Sedona, and I knew Sedona was supposed to be like this really spiritual place. And he was like, sure, why don't you come out and visit? And yeah, just come visit. So I'm still super grateful to this day for Jim. And he welcomed me into his home, and I told him a little bit about my story, because I was still very, very gun shy to tell people about my gift. One, I didn't want to be the crazy lady. I didn't want to be different, because I've always tried to fit in and be perfect and all those things. So he said, well, let's just go meet some of my friends. And took me around, and he had introduced me to like a bunch of different people in Sedona, all doing their own sort of gifted abilities, like readings or just, tapped in people about. Back then there was a lot of talk about, trying to remember the name, but indigo children, right? I met a guy who was an indigo children specialist. He's like, wow, you're an early indigo. I had no idea what that meant. As I was visiting all these people, I started to realize, okay, what I have isn't that weird. When I became a clairvoyant medium, I didn't really have like a lot of mentors or people around me. So I'm like, I didn't know that there was a whole, culture and community of people that are spiritually gifted. And so as I started to meet them, I was like, oh, okay. And I saw some with gifts that maybe at the time to me were a little weirder than I was. And I was like, I'm good. Don't give me anything else. Oh. And no new ones, So, and it was actually in Sedona that there was a healing session. There was this couple that was going to do this healing session. And I said, can I just sit in the room and watch? Because I was just curious, like what they did. And there was a copper thing with crystals, and the woman laid on the table. And it was in that room that I realized I could see. You want the long story? It's a fun
Sure.
story. Okay, cool.
You can give me the long and the fun story. How's that?
Okay. They're both, the long and fun stories fun. So my guides, I also early on realized I had a switch, and then I could turn it off and I could turn it on. So I kept it off almost all the time. I was like, I don't want to see. I'm good. But so at this particular healing event, my team came in and kind of whispered in my ear, like, hey, open your sight. And I was like, no. So they're like, come on, trust us, just open your sight. So I opened my sight like this much. So I just saw the crystal grid and the healing, and there was all these lights, and I was like, oh, that's so pretty. They're like, open your sight to include the whole room. I'm like, no. I love my team. They're very patient with me, especially in the early days. They had to practice a lot of patience. They're like, okay, just trust us. And I was like, okay, fine. And I opened my sight to include the whole room. And in the back right-hand corner of the room, there was this big dark mass. And I was like, see, I didn't need to see that. I was totally fine. I don't need to see the darkness. That was part of my fear, was like seeing all of it. And I was like, okay, I didn't need to see the darkness. Why did you guys tell me to see the darkness? They're like, it's okay. Trust us. Then on top of it, they're like, invite it towards you. I'm like, are you kidding me? No, not happening. Not. And they're like, come on, trust us. And I go, okay, fine. So I invited it towards me. And when it hit my energy field, which I think is like my bubble or whatever lots of people call it different things, it literally turned into bubbles of light and went up to the sky, and I could have sworn I heard it say thank you. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. And they were like, see, nothing can hurt you. Like there's no harm that's going to come to you for being aware of energies. And I was like, oh. In that instant, my entire life changed, because I was no longer afraid of my gift. I was no longer afraid of seeing darkness. I was no longer afraid of being uncomfortable or seeing things that aren't great. And because I knew I couldn't be harmed. And so that knowing has carried me forward now 20 years. Now.
Yeah, that's an incredible long and fun story. It's interesting, Venus. I used to work at the Pratt Munson School of Art with art students, and I taught them liberal arts courses in psychology. And these are very kinesthetic, very intuitive. They saw things very multidimensionally. And I've had other students that I've worked with who have come forward. We talk about the spiritual aspects of death, dying, and bereavement. I teach a Cure of the Human Spirit course. So we're exploring holistic practices, spiritual practices. We're exploring everything and seeing how that integrates with our whole body, mind, and our emotions. And when I start talking, and we do talk about indigo children as well, too, in terms of those very intuitive, children that come into this universe with an advanced sense of knowing, who kind of don't fit the traditional script of traditional school-bound children, who don't traditionally respond well to a traditional academic curriculum, who are very confrontive in a good way, because they come in with this knowing, saying, well, I know how things are supposed to be done. And when we start talking about that and we start having normalized conversations around it, I've had students come up to me and say, I've always seen the world like this, but I've been afraid to really talk about it because I'm afraid, like you, people are going to perceive you're crazy. And the other thing that they've told me is that I'm very afraid to see what I know I can see.
Right.
Because I don't want to see that darkness. I don't want to see that far into the future. I just want to be a normal 19-year-old male or female or transsexual or transgender They just want to be able to just fit in with their crowd, fit in with their peer group, and try to keep their gift hidden. But a lot of the times it's very difficult. So, we talk about, like Ram Dass said, walk with one foot in this world and one foot in your zip code and one foot in the other world, and try to find that balance. But, what's been empowering for me and gratifying for me is when we have discussions about spiritual phenomenon, and we talk about the role of mediums in the Dutch system. We're very open about that. We talk about how you can guide individuals to find a very competent, very ethical medium. So we talk about all of this, and it just opens up a whole different bunch of conversation and normalizes a lot of stuff for them that other individuals told them, well, you shouldn't just to worry about the real world stuff. But, but there was always a certain amount of fear that these individuals told me that they had, because of the fact that they were intimidated, by the gift that they had and by the breadth of their gift.
And that's how I started clearing spaces, because I realized I could see what was going on, and then I could clear it. And I can honestly say, to your point with people, is just like the acceptance of the gifts is so much easier than the resistance.
Yeah, but it's a process to get to acceptance.
Oh yeah, they have to go through their own path and journey with it, for sure.
And I could see you having a fight with your spirit team. No, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do this. Well, trust us. And one of the things I've been doing during my Reiki meditations, and I've struggled with this, I think, as many of we all live in the human experience, is surrendering to the fact that the universe always knows what's best for us. So in my Reiki meditations, I do three things, three just basic words: acceptance of the life that I have now, surrender to the will of the universe and not try to control it, and then find peace with all of it. But there are still some days, I look up at the universe and say, can you I know you're on Spirit Central Time, but can you just hurry up things a little bit? But we still struggle with that. But that's one of the things that I've consistently learned to do. And I think all of us kind of struggle with that at certain points in our lives. So
for sure.
So how do we know that a house needs clearing?
Well, I would say number one, it's by the feeling. You walk into a space and you're just like, okay, this just doesn't feel right. It cannot feel right for a lot of different reasons. Like, it might have been a couple that used to live there that argued all the time, and there's residual arguments still there. Of course, we have ghosts, entities that are stuck there in limbo, those sorts of things. But it's usually a feeling. And I have a lot of people, like, when they hire me, it's like, okay, they know something's off. And I have them go by, how does it feel before I started and how does it feel after? But, I also teach people how to clear homes. And so we use actual measuring systems like dowsing rods, or so that you can actually perceive that something's off in the energy. And then once we clear it, the energy is clear. The dowsing rods are different than they were at the beginning.
I think you could go to a house and just kind of do a quick scan and realize that there are some parts that feel really good, and there's other parts intuitively that just have some really negative energy attached to it. But now, take us through the process of when you go into a house, what you do now. Is this where the vibrational flow method comes into play?
Yeah.
Or is there also sage involved too?
No, actually, sage is what I tell people to do before I come.
Okay.
I do free presentations for brokerages and stuff, and I give them a list of 50 ways to clear a home, and I'm number 50. So there's 49 other things that they can try, and sage is one of them, right? So sage, sound, there's lots of different things that other people can try, and I would hope that they would have tried everything, and I'm kind of their last resort. Does that answer your question?
That answered my question. That answered my question perfectly. So, does Treasure have any questions for me? I mean, is she?
She took off. She's like, okay, I'm good.
She goes, okay, I'm good. Or else I might have bored her too. I don't know. So we'll see. Do you ever have anybody look at you really quizzically when you tell them that you clear houses, and how do you respond to that?
Yeah. Actually, I just got it last night. I thought it was really funny. It's somebody I've known for actually years. And he knew I wrote a best-selling book. And so he's like, are you traveling with your book and all the things? And I was like, no, I'm not really doing that right now. He's like, well, really, what are you doing? And so I told him, I said, I help real estate agents clear the energy from stuck homes so they can sell them with greater ease. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, oh, I don't take it personal anymore. People will have their own things around it. He may come back later and say, what did you mean by that? If he wants to know more. If he doesn't want to know more, I won't hear from him. So, yeah.
Since my own experience with tragedy, and particularly with the transition of my daughter from the physical world to the spiritual world, I've had so many fun people in my support circle now. I have individuals who are very grounded. I have individuals who are very intuitive. I have individuals who are kind of a combination of the both, but they're all very different thinkers. And I look at one of the gifts of my challenges that I've had with tragedy is that I have met some really cool people who have given me a lot of unique perspectives that have expanded my understanding of the world and understanding of myself. Would I have preferred another tragedy to have had this happen? Absolutely. But, I'm grateful for the fact that I have these individuals in my life now who have helped me accept the fact that the world I'm living in is different, and providing some really good insight in terms of how I can manage that and navigate it. So, I mean, over 23 years ago, I probably would have looked at you the same way that guy looked at you, but now it's like, oh, you clear houses, cool.
Yeah.
I get it because everything has an energy. So,
And I tell all sorts of real estate agents what I do, right? So there's always the ones that are like, I never hear from and I never see them again. And then there's the ones that are like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about and I need to hire you. So I'm not trying to be liked by everybody. I spent many years in my life trying to be liked and, trying to hide my gifts and stuff. And that just was miserable. So I am me, and some people like it and some people don't. And that's okay.
Yeah, I learned that it sucks to deny a part of your existence that you're resistant to accept.
Yeah.
And, a different circumstance for me is about 2.5 years into the journey of being a parent who experienced the death of a child. I told the universe, I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
So I stopped going to support group meetings. I cut myself off from any meaningful support and tried to power my way through it. I was miserable. So I came to the conclusion that whether I like it or not, part of my identity now is part of my life experience is going to be that parent who's lost a child. I learned over years that it's not going to define me, but it's certainly going to influence it. And once I started accepting that the fact that, I'm a parent who experienced the death of a child, and it sucks, but I'm willing to work through this with support of other individuals who understood, it became a gradual process of acceptance for me. When you deny your own destiny, it's a source of self-misery.
Yeah. I experienced depression. It's so not fun.
Well, personally, I'm glad you've accepted your gift as a medium, and you're doing what you're doing to help a lot of homeowners, a lot of individuals kind of find clarity. You said you had a best-selling book. So tell us about it. I'd be remiss as a podcast host and get poor grades from you as another podcast host if I didn't ask you about it. So tell us about your best-selling book and what you want readers to take away from it.
Awesome. So the book is called Here to Forever, Finally Free to Be Me. It was my own personal journey of learning to fall in love with myself, and looking for love in all the wrong places. So it's a book of self-love, and I would love everybody to really love themselves, their quirks, their weirdness, their whatever it is. I will admit openly here that I grazed over the medium thing in the book because it was more about relationships for me for a long time. And so I'm pretty sure that another book will come out at some point to tell that story.
Yeah, I'm sure it will too. But, to dovetail back to what you do for real estate agents, real estate brokers, one of the things I really like is that you give them 49 attempts to try to fix it themselves, and then you're the 50th choice. So that tells me that you do your practice from an ethical standpoint, from an honorable standpoint. And I equate that to a medium who will see somebody for 3 times and says, look, I can keep connecting you to your loved ones, but I can also show you how to do that. I can
Right.
also show you how to make that connection yourself. And those are the type of mediums I will refer to over and over again because of the ethical flavor that they have behind what they do.
It's actually even part of why I've decided now to teach people how to clear homes, because I've had enough real estate agents ask, can you teach me how to do it? And I'm like, sure. So what do you think? Yeah, because I also honestly, I love what I do, but I don't want to be the only person doing it.
Well, you'd be pretty tired if you were.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But
But the other thing, we want our message and our gifts to go on long after we're gone. So what better way to stay immortal than passing down what we know, what we understand to somebody else? And this way our legacy continues to carry on. So I want to get back to the piece about self-love. Why is it so difficult for people to really just love themselves from your perspective and from your own experiences?
Well, I think there's just a lot of, like, we're raised, I had religion. There was a right way to do things. There was a wrong way to do things. And I was raised in Catholicism. So relationships, sex, copulation, all that stuff was bad and wrong. So anytime I did that, I felt like I was sinning and doing the wrong thing. And then, so it just compounded. So we just in massive amounts of judgment of ourselves from age 7 and on, pretty much, early years, we don't really notice it. But as soon as we start to get like, oh, no, that's bad. No, that's good from our parent or church or whatever. And then we start to buy this story that somehow we're innately bad and wrong. I mean, it's kind of taught, right? Like we're innately sinners. I don't personally believe that anymore. But so I had to kind of unravel a lot about like who I am, and it's different than anybody else I know. And is that okay? Am I willing to be different than anybody else? And I'm the only one that can really love me for me, like fully, as somebody who's unique and different and not like anybody else. But don't get me wrong, I spent many years and I still have some relapses sometimes where I try to just fit in, and I don't want to be like everybody else. And I want to be normal. And then I'm like, do I think about it? I'm like, do I really want to be normal? Maybe not. Normal's kind of.
I think normal is kind of relative anyway. I mean, one person's version of what's normal certainly is going to differ from what I think is normal. So
Yeah.
I was raised Catholic. I kiddingly call myself a recovering Catholic now. And, I was raised with, the duality piece that there's a heaven and a hell, that there's sinners and there's just great people. And then after I started listening to all of this dogma, at 16, I just walked away from it and just thought it was a bunch of crap, because I met individuals that didn't go to church. I met individuals who didn't believe in a heaven or a hell. I've since met atheists, agnostics, and these are good people.
Yeah.
So just because they don't believe in a heaven or a hell, or they don't buy into the dualistic philosophy of Catholicism, so there's going to be a God that's going to have like this pitchfork and just banish you to the bowels of hell. I never believed that.
Right.
I read one of my favorite books on the afterlife, if not my favorite book on the Afterlife of Billy Fingers. One of the teachings in that book is, why should we have to earn love when we're born with it already?
Right. Yeah.
Because we're born out of love. We're born pure loving spirits.
Right.
And then, like you said, the messages of our authority figures, society gets in, and we buy into that. We buy into that narrative, and it determines how we feel about ourselves, what we do, what we hesitate in terms of wanting to do, and really trying to blossom into who we're meant to be.
Yeah. And then even it goes a little bit farther too, even like looking outside of ourselves for validation, like looking to a relationship for them to validate you, or a teacher or a mentor. It's like, I remember glancing at somebody's paper in English, in an English test when I was in high school, and the teacher saw me do it. She came up to me, ripped my test in half, got a 0 on the exam. It created such a like trauma, like of like how I don't look good. Now everybody's judging me, right? You're just trying to like, keep your composure and like a good person. I am a good person. I cheated on an English exam. It doesn't make me a bad person. But the reaction from her was like made me feel very bad, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we have all this kind of glumped on us and we have to kind of shed it and be like, okay, so who am I inside? And what's my heart? What do I truly believe? What do I truly desire? Do I desire, and you may not, but for me, I had to look at, do I desire the betterment of all humanity? Do I want to make the world a better place? Is that truly what I desire? And for me, it was true. So it's like, that isn't a bad person, right?
No,
Right.
no.
No.
People that treat others with compassion, with
Yeah.
kindness, with understanding, with respect, regardless of whether you're Catholic, regardless of whether you're Protestant, atheist, agnostic, white, black, Asian, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you have those qualities, you're a good person.
Right.
You are doing, quote unquote, God's work. Because that's the God I was raised to understand as a Catholic was a loving God. He was a tolerant God. He welcomed everybody
Right.
from all walks of life. And if I can model that, I don't need to go to church once a week. I don't need to
Right.
recite dogma. I'm going to live my life according to those values. And if those values are the values that I have, and those are the values that you have, we're gonna strike a friendship.
No.
So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't know if you were going to say anything else.
No, you didn't interrupt me. It was perfect.
No.
Thank you.
Our awakening adventures. I was on your wonderful podcast. We had a great conversation. And when that episode comes out, I'll be sharing that, very, very strongly. So tell us about how you got the idea for the podcast and what the mission of the podcast is, and the response has been so far.
Wonderful. Yes. So as you guys have heard already, I had quite the spiritual awakening when I turned 30, and didn't really, like I said, I didn't have people to talk about it. I kind of hid it. I didn't want to be weirder than I already was. So it was difficult. And in talking to you, Dave, I learned how you had your spiritual awakening. But I realized we are globally waking up, and more people are waking up all the time. And so I wanted to create a podcast where people could feel not alone, not crazy, not too, not too weird, hear some real life stories from real people and how they've kind of dealt with it, but then also how they've utilized it. Like, I didn't know that when I became a clairvoyant medium, I would be specialized in clearing spaces in the land. And I'm like, but that's my specialty. That's what I did with my gifts. So everybody has done different things with their gifts and their awareness. And it's really, truly just to help the masses as we all awaken and ascend together.
I think that's a great goal. And I've met other podcasters like yourself who feature stories just because we want to contribute to the betterment of humanity. We want to contribute to the betterment of quality of life for those individuals who are going to listen to it. And, I've mentioned this on several occasions that, podcasters create a really great community. We share strategies, we share tips, we share guest contributors. And I think that's one of the things that I did not anticipate when I started my podcast 3 years ago, was just the amount of community and togetherness and oneness that there is among podcasters. So that was a pleasant surprise for me.
Oh, that's awesome. I've had different podcasts over the years. Awakening Adventures is fairly new. It's like the beginning of this year. But almost all of my podcasts, I've always interviewed people. I just love talking to people. I love getting to know them. I love hearing their stories. And yeah, so this was just kind of another iteration of that, of just like, how do we get more people's stories out there into the world?
And, the cool thing about podcasts too is that unless the podcaster takes them down, they're there for eternity.
Right.
And so you can have a podcast that's 2 years old, somebody stumbles upon it, they've learned something from it. So So I think, yeah, we can kind of leave a digital legacy as well that way too. So,
True.
all right, now I got kind of a surprise question for you, but a good surprise question. Trust me.
Okay. I'm excited.
All right, here you go. Are you and Treasure ready?
No, we're ready. She's
You're
asleep.
ready.
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. All right. If you could construct the perfect day for yourself, not for anybody else, what would that perfect day look like?
Mm. Oh, what a great question. Well, first for me, a perfect day would include time in nature. So I love hiking. I love being just with Mother Nature and Mother Earth. I would love to have a conversation or two like this of just great people we can just talk to about anything. I do value those a lot because there was many years where I couldn't tell people anything. A few years after becoming a clairvoyant medium, I moved to Arkansas. That was an interesting move. So
I'm trying to picture that in my own head. I might need some more time for that one.
So nowadays, like for me, a perfect day is days where we can just be ourselves and we can just talk about anything and nothing's taboo and nothing's judged. We're all just here, like you said, having a human experience. And if we could just have those, I love those sorts of conversations, heart to heart.
Yeah, I think that would be part of a perfect day for me to talk to people like yourself who see the world very differently, who see the world multidimensionally, who are non-conventional thinkers. Those are the type of people I'd want to be around. And I come back to one of my favorite quotes from Ram Dass is we're all just walking each other home. And so, I mean, if we can sit down with each other, walk each other's paths, understand it, not judge it, I mean, we would have a world that would be based on the values that we see in ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And cuddles. I love cuddles with my animals and my husband. So
How many, besides Treasure, how many animals do you have?
we just have two. I have a dog and a cat.
Ah, good.
Yeah.
So what's your dog's name? Got to give the dog equal time here.
Yes. Her name is Faith.
I love that. Faith and Treasure. I love that. I love that. That's pretty cool. What kind of dog is Faith?
Faith is she's adopted. She was a mutt adopted from Mexico, but she probably has some terrier pit in her. A little stocky, but she has longer nose. She's a beautiful dog. So yeah, very pretty.
Yeah, I think all our animals are beautiful. They got a spirit all of their own, and the animals I've had in my life have provided me comfort and love, and when I couldn't love myself sometimes, and they were there for me. So
Yeah.
But that could be another podcast in terms of the spiritual messages of animals and the value of animals to the human experience.
Yeah. I have a great guest for you if you want to do that.
Well, perfect. Yeah, I'm up for that. I would be very much up for that. So, Venus, it's been a great conversation, but I'm going to ask you, one of the last questions I'm going to ask is, if you could leave our audience with one thing you want them to remember from today, what would that one thing be?
Loving yourself is not as difficult as you make it.
Yeah. And yeah, I read a meme on Facebook that said that sometimes our own worst enemy lies between our two ears.
What? For sure.
And we make it more difficult than it should be. You're right.
And I'll give you another one. Trust your awareness. It's true. So, yeah.
I mean, a lot of times we have trouble, I think, trusting our intuition. In my Cure of the Human Spirit course, I have a reflection question. Why do you think it's so difficult for people to trust their intuition? And many of them say it's just because we've been so used to evidentiary practices as being the source of our knowledge
Right.
that we forget to trust our intuition. But I've told them, your intuition and your gut's going to get you out of a lot of tough spots, and trust it, because 99% of the time your intuition's spot on.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah. I follow the whispers more magic shows up all the time.
yeah. Or when you're open to following the whispers, magic happens.
Yep, totally.
My last question for you, people want to get in touch with you, follow your podcast, purchase your book. What's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, well, thank you. It was wonderful. Yeah, so I do have the website, venuscastleberg.com. I'm on all the socials. The book is on Amazon.
And I'll make sure all of your contact information gets into the episode notes before we go live. So, Venus, thanks again for just a great conversation. Hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Oh, wonderful. I would love that. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.